The sun was dipping low over the Montana horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples that made the rolling hills of my family's ranch look like something out of an old Western painting. I'd just finished mending the fence along the eastern boundary when I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel drive. A shiny SUV pulled up, kicking up dust, and out stepped a woman in crisp khakis and a visor, clipboard in hand, like she was about to audit the apocalypse. She marched straight toward me, her lips pursed in that way that screamed entitlement. "Excuse me," she barked, "but this property is now under the jurisdiction of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association. You'll need to remove that unsightly barn immediately. It's not up to code." I stared at her, my grandfather's old Stetson shading my eyes, and felt a laugh bubble up from deep in my chest. Little did she know this land had been in my family for nearly a century, and no HOA busybody was going to claim a single acre of it. My name's Jack Harlan, and the Harlan Ranch has been my bloodline's heartbeat since 1928. Great-Grandpa Harlan bought it after striking it rich in the copper mines, trading his pickaxe for a deed to 500 acres of prime grazing land. He built the main house with his own hands, timber frame by timber frame, and raised cattle that fed half the county during the Great Depression. My grandpa took over in the 50s, expanding the herd and adding the barn that now apparently offended this woman's sensibilities. Dad kept it going through droughts and market crashes, and when he passed it to me 5 years ago, it came with stories etched into every fence post and barn beam. We weren't just owners, we were stewards of a legacy. But times change, and suburbia had been creeping closer, swallowing up neighboring farms with cookie-cutter houses and manicured lawns. Whispering Pines was the latest development, a gated community of McMansions plopped down on what used to be Old Man Thompson's pasture. I figured they'd keep to themselves until Karen showed up. Her name was actually Karen Aroni of Ironies. Karen Whitaker, president of the Whispering Pines HOA, as her badge proudly declared. She thrust a stack of papers at me, her manicured nails tapping impatiently. "According to our covenants, all adjacent properties must comply with aesthetic guidelines. That eyesore of a barn is visible from our clubhouse, and it's lowering property values." I glanced at the documents full of legalese about setbacks, color palettes, and prohibited structures. "Ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this ranch predates your neighborhood by about 90 years. We're not part of any HOA," like I'd just told her the earth was flat. "Oh, honey, that's where you're wrong. Our development annexed the surrounding lands under eminent domain provisions." Check your deed. I'm sure there's a clause. I felt my jaw tighten. Annexed? This wasn't some city block. This was my home. But as she drove off in a huff, leaving me with her notice of violation, I realized this wasn't going to blow over with a polite conversation. That night, I pored over the old family records in the attic, dust motes dancing in the beam of my flashlight. The original deed from 1928 was there, yellowed and crisp, with Great-Grandpa's signature in faded ink. No mentions of HOAs, of course those abominations didn't exist back then. But as I dug deeper, I found surveys from the 80s. When Dad fought off a similar land grab from a logging company, he'd won by proving historical easements and water rights. Maybe that would help now. The next morning, I called my lawyer, old Tom Riley, who'd been handling Harlan affairs since before I was born. "Jack, these HOA types are like weeds," he grumbled over the phone. "They spread fast and choke everything. But if your land's grandfathered in, they've got no claim." He promised to look into it, but warned me. Karen Whitaker's got deep pockets. Her husband's a developer. They built Whispering Pines themselves. Sure enough, the harassment started small, but escalated quickly. First, it was anonymous complaints to the county about noise pollution from my cattle lowing at dawn. Then, surveyors showed up unannounced, staking out what they claimed was disputed boundary line right through my hayfield. I chased them off with a shotgun full of rock salt, but not before they planted flags that looked like little victory markers. Karen herself returned a week later, this time with a sheriff's deputy in tow. "Mr. Harlan," the deputy said apologetically, "Ms. Whitaker here has filed a trespassing claim. Says your fence encroaches on HOA common area." I showed him the deed, but he just shrugged. "Gotta sort it in court, son." Karen smirked from behind him, her eyes gleaming with triumph. See? Even the law agrees. That ranch is as good as ours. We'll turn it into a lovely park, maybe a dog run for our residents. I wasn't about to let some suburban dictator steal my heritage. Digging into public records at the county clerk's office, I uncovered something juicy. Whispering Pines had been approved under shady circumstances. The Whitakers had greased palms to fast-track permits, bypassing environmental reviews that would have flagged issues with the aquifer we all shared. My ranch's wells fed into that same system, and any annexation could contaminate our water with their runoff. Tom Riley jumped on it like a coyote on a rabbit. This is gold, Jack. We can countersue for fraud and endangerment. But Karen wasn't backing down. She rallied her HOA minion soccer moms and retired executives who picketed my gate with signs reading "Modernize" or "Move Out" and "Ranch Eyesore Ruins Views." One night, someone cut my fence, letting a dozen cows wander into their precious cul-de-sacs. I rounded them up at 2 a.m., chuckling at the thought of manure on their driveways. But it was a warning. This was war. The climax came at the town hall meeting, where the HOA petitioned to rezone my land as a residential extension. The room was packed, Whispering Pines folks on one side in polo shirts, locals like me on the other in boots and jeans. Karen took the podium first, her voice dripping honeyed venom. Ladies and gentlemen, progress waits for no one. The Harlan Ranch is a relic, a blight on our community's future. By incorporating it, we can create green spaces, walking trails, benefits for all. Applause from her side. Then it was my turn. I stood tall, holding the 1928 deed like a shield. This isn't just land, I said, my voice echoing. It's history. My great-grandpa built this place when folks were starving. My family fought floods, blizzards, and banks to keep it. And now some outsider thinks she can waltz in and claim it. Check the records. Your annexation is built on lies. Out the evidence, the bribed approvals, the ignored surveys showing my boundaries clear as day. Tom projected old photos, great-grandpa on horseback, grandpa baling hay, dad teaching me to ride. The room murmured, then shifted. Even some HOA members looked uneasy. Karen exploded. This is outrageous. Taxes civilization. But the mayor, a grizzled old-timer whose family went back as far as mine, banged the gavel. Motion denied. The Harlan Ranch stays as is. Cheers erupted from my side. As the meeting broke, Karen cornered me, face red as a branding iron. This isn't over, Harlan. We'll appeal. I tipped my hat. Bring it on, Karen. But remember, roots run deep here. Yours. It's just sod over concrete. In the weeks that followed, the Whitakers' empire cracked. Investigations into their permits led to fines and a halted expansion. Karen resigned as HOA president amid scandals. Turns out she'd been skimming dues for personal upgrades. Whispering Pines quieted down there. Gates a little less smug. Me. I reinforced the fences, hired a surveyor to etch our boundaries in stone, and even invited some neighbors over for a barbecue. Not all were bad folks, just misled by a power-hungry leader. As I watched the sun set from the porch that night, the same fiery sky as before, I felt Grandpa's spirit nodding approval. The ranch wasn't just dirt and cattle, it was unbreakable. Dan, no HOA Karen could ever change that.